of you have talked about transparency. How do you use the transparency that sub-advisory offers? In what way can you make advantage of this transparency, Lee?
Well, the portfolios I manage are manager of manager, so the sub-advisors are trading directly on the fund's assets, and because it's with my custodian, etc., I can see, I have complete transparency. I see the holdings they've got. You know, when they trade today, trade blotter gets sent to the custodian fund accounting. Next day I see exactly what they've bought. The beauty of that, of course, is if you're looking at a portfolio and you see something you don't like, say a stock's down 70%, you can actually ring the manager up and ask him what he's doing. Is he concerned? Is he going to, you can have that conversation with him. From a portfolio construction point of view, it allows you to be a lot more focused and allows you to target, well, just looking at factor exposures, risks, a lot more acutely than you can if you're doing, say, a fund-of-fund solution.
And is there any asset class where transparency offered from sub-advisory is particularly interesting, appreciated?
We would say that transparency is key, portfolio level transparency, and if one's overall investment analysis is predicated on portfolio evidence, you really can't do your job unless you have not only the portfolios 24/7, but the transactions that go with them. And that goes throughout the spectrum, we believe. The complexity increases with hedge funds because the amount of information available, if you have transparency on hedge funds, is almost overwhelming. And the question is, can you see the wood for the trees in this particular case? So transparency, we believe, is key. Not only transparency on underlying investments, the transactions, but also the fees the managers occur, the volume of trading, all kinds of things that come into the equation which you cannot see if you buy somebody else's fund.
Mm-hmm. But Paolo, do you also need to have some structures in-house to be able to make the most of the transparency in terms of perhaps monitoring managers on how they use, for example, derivatives, or is it important to have a structure in place in-house?
That is a key point, and we took a lot of time in doing that. The point is that transparency is an opportunity. In the meantime, you need to be able to exploit it. And it's even more complex than with pure fund selection, so selection of a mutual fund. So in our case, we have different units within the company that are involved in monitoring the sub-advised mutual fund, from the CEO to the sales and product development to, say, the fund selection unit, which is tackling more investment-related issues, to the risk management on even more specific issues such as the use of derivatives. I would like to say as well that transparency is an opportunity, but also, in a sense, a threat. Because there is to me, there is a thin line that when you have a sub-advisory in place, is difficult not to cross in these difficult times. For instance, let's say in principle, when you have a pre-agreed set of guidelines, the portfolio manager should be able to manage the portfolio as freely as possible in order to deliver the expected results. But what happens if, in a certain circumstance, he wants to buy a specific asset class, single credits or stocks you are not confident with? An example may be buying PIGS sovereigns or credits at the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. Of course, you are free to tell him, you have a full visibility, transparency of the portfolio, you have regular conference calls, you are free to tell him that you don't feel confident with these positions. They are not, let's say, consistent with the sensitivities of your sales network. But at the very end, you are, let's say, impairing, you have an influence on his capability to manage the portfolio. And if he finally proves right, you can't blame him on, let's say, not delivering the expected results. To me, this is becoming really a key issue we probably hadn't thought about when we started, just because we are living very uncertain times.
Just if I can just add one thing on transparency. I mean, it allows you to obviously, I mean, just to give you a feel for how it allows you to get a better control of risks was, you know, when the credit crunch happened. And it was like, you know, when Bear Stearns, Lehman's went, it's which dominoes next, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. You know, our team were able to look at the portfolios line by line, look at the exposure of the managers, and if we were concerned that there's a potential risk there, we're in a position to ring them up and get confidence ourselves in the counterparty risks. You know, not just the advisor we've appointed, but also the various counterparty risk in the portfolios.